Welcome to The Job That Built Me, the podcast where we dive into the careers that shape us, the mentors that guide us, and the lessons learned along the way. Today we've got an incredible guest who has dedicated nearly 2 decades to the fire service. Anthony Rowett Jr. is a captain with the Mobile Fire Rescue Department in Alabama, with 19 years of experience in the fire service. His journey started as a volunteer firefighter in Ogdensburg, New Jersey, before moving south to Mobile, where he spent the last 16 years. But his impact goes far beyond the fireground. Anthony is the owner of Port City Fire Training and the president of the Alabama Firefighters Training Foundation. He is a contributing author for some of the biggest fire service publications, including Fire Engineering, Firehouse, Fire Rescue, and more. You may have seen him instructing at major fire conferences like FDIC, Firehouse Expo, Water on the Fire, and the High Rise Operations Conference. Anthony is also an FDIC hot instructor, an NFPA 14 committee member, and a co-host on the Generation Engine podcast. This is a guy who eats, sleeps, and breathes the job, and today he's here to share his story, how he got started, the lessons he's learned, and what keeps him pushing forward. So let's get into it. Welcome to The Job That Built Me.
So
that's good. That's learning from your mistakes.
Yeah,
It's not a bad thing.
no,
But
No, this
all
is
right, James,
it's all positive.
dial us up there, bro.
All right, so we're I don't know what episode this is. I'm not going to put a number to it, but we're here again. We got all four. We got 4 of us today. So today we got Anthony in here from Port City Fire Training, from the city of Mobile, Alabama. I don't have a Alabama accent, but I'll give it a shot.
He has an Alabama accent now. But he's
now
from
he does.
Jersey.
Now he
New
does.
Jersey accent's gone.
It only takes a few years.
Yeah, well, it's been a few of them, so it's gone.
So let's roll into this, Ant.
Yeah, what's going on?
How'd you get started in the fire service?
Started out as an explorer with the volunteers where I grew up there in Sussex County in Ogdensburg, a real small town. And kind of like always wanted to be a fireman since I was a kid. And my parents were kind of like, hey, before you go down this route of like not going to college and you're going to go to college, get a fire science degree that doesn't translate to anything else, probably join the volunteers and make sure you like it. So I joined the volunteers during high school. And I mean, ever since then, it like just confirmed it. And it was like, yeah, it's on. I don't want to do anything else. And was volunteering with some guys in my volunteer department and some others that were testing for different places, wanting to, get paid, go paid and all that. So a few of us came down here, some guys from other local departments, New York City, Charlotte, places like that. So kind of a group of us that were just going that route. And that end of Sussex County in New Jersey, there is no paid fire departments up there. So that wasn't really an option to stay home and stay local and do it. Everything works out for a reason, Took the New York City test, came out pretty good. That one got held up in court. And then kid I volunteered with, his uncle was down here from being in the military and was on the job here. And he was like, man, I'm going to go test for my uncle's department. Why don't you go with me? And I was like, all right, well, let's go. So we came down here together and tested, and then came on in back-to-back classes, ended up working together for a little while. And then he got married and moved to North Alabama and works in Huntsville now. And kind of been a story ever since. Just made it home down here, and yeah.
Okay. Early on,
Cool.
Did you have any influence back in Sussex before you got on as a sport? Or just something you wanted to get into?
I always say it goes back to my parents said it was always as a little kid. That's all I talked about. But the first time I remember it being like that lasting impression on me was there was a fire near my grandmother's house that we went when we heard about it. My parents got in the car and drove to make sure she was okay. And I was probably 5 at the time, 6 or whatever. And we're like a couple houses away or streets away, whatever. And we got, I'm sitting there watching it, and it had that impression of like, okay, I like that. And then it just became the passion as a kid. Like, I didn't grow enough to make it to the NHL, so that was out. So we went the other route.
Cool.
I mean, I think it's a pretty damn good route.
Yeah, it worked out pretty good. I can't complain.
So you're now a captain, right?
Yep. Yeah. So
Where do you assign a mobile?
I work a captain in Engine 3. We don't have lieutenants, so I get asked that question all the time. So our captains don't do as much of the administrative stuff as some departments have captains do. It's more of a in the middle between lieutenants and captains for some places. And we just kind of have a house captain, that senior captain amongst all the shifts. So I work on Engine 3, which is our downtown firehouse. And I was a fireman there, driver there, captain there. I'd only, leave when I got promoted and they made you leave and come back. And just a fun run area to have because no matter like what you're going through that day or you're not into it that day, you don't feel good, whatever, you're going to drive in and see something and be like, we haven't done that in a while. Let's work on it. Like it's easy to stay motivated because we have so much in just a small little, it's 3 square mile run area. 1 square mile of it's the bay. So we don't really go out there, but so 2 square miles and you've got the high rise district projects, the antebellum Victorian homes, all the commercial stuff, the 9th busiest port in the country, all the industry that supports that port, tunnels, bridges, all sorts of stuff. So it's easy to come in and go, man, we haven't talked about a fire in the tunnel. How are we going to handle that today? Let's talk about that. Or we haven't done high rise today, a ship fire today. And it's easy to have constant training and it's not repetitive and, just becoming the same thing all the time or always staying in your comfort zone that you can get out and just constantly find something else to work on. And then like any downtown district, it's always under construction. The construction never stops. Something's coming down, something's going up, something's getting renovated. So it's easy to constantly get in and out of things and see what's going on. Like, we're not going to be real physical today. Let's just walk this building and see what they're changing in it, or stop and see while they're doing construction what they're going to be building, how it's laid out. And it's one of the busier houses, so guys are motivated to be there. You don't really work with people that don't want to make runs or aren't into the job. You work with a bunch of good guys. And then it's also just my whole career being there, it's always had senior guys. So at all times, there's been a couple 30-year guys there, a couple 20-year guys there. So you always had a lot of experience to fall back on, or, hey man, we had this first time we ran into it. What have you done before? And compare it to what you decided or things like that. So, just a lot of experience in that firehouse, that district of the city to learn from, which always made it motivating to be down there. Yeah, once it's home. I've been there in every role, so been on different shifts and different roles, but it's home. Wouldn't want to work anywhere else. So, and then it doesn't help. It doesn't hurt that we got the ambulance there with us, which I'm not a medic, so I don't ride that, but the ambulance is there with their crew. We got the engine and the truck in the house, so your guys can get cross trained and get prepared for things coming up. If they're promoting or if they do want to cross the floor and things like that. And it's all in house, so. Just a good group of guys to work with. And like I said, it's easy to stay motivated because it's not the same thing repetitive every day.
So did you assign there as a fireman prior to being a captain?
Yeah, I worked out. So when I came out of our academy, I went to Engine 14, which is, we run second due with them. 3 and 14 border each other on the north side on Martin Luther King. And I went there 8 months to a year or so, I think it was, and got asked to come down there by the captain on the B shift. And he just had a reputation as he trains more than anybody in the city. And I came on at 19 years old. So it was like, man, I want to be busy. So if I can go work for that guy that trains a lot, plus it's, growing up in North Jersey, like the high rises are down there. Okay. That's kind of what the image is in your mind. So I went down there and then that was it. And I worked with really good guys when I was at 14. Some of them are still some of my biggest mentors today. And, but that was where I wanted to be. And I wanted to be someone that was just going to train me, just invest every bit of time he could in building that crew up. So I went down there and me and him that captain ended up promoting out together. I made driver when he made chief, and we left. I went out, they sent me out to the west side of the city. So I went from the urban, dense populated area of the city to an area that's like annexed in years and years later after the city formed. So very, very suburban to even rural out there. And it just, I live out here now just past that, but it just wasn't where I wanted to be as a fireman. It was good guys, but I'd really just taken to that downtown area. So the first time a driver's opening came back open on Engine 3, I went back down there and then spent another couple of years there, got promoted again. They sent me out to the southwest side of the city, which, again, rural, and worked with really good guys there. Some of them came back to Central Firehouse with us, and I'm still in the firehouse with them now, but it was the same thing. It was just, and they all knew, like, he got here, that's a Central guy. His chance he gets to go back home, he's going. So the opportunity opened up. The captain that brought me down there ended up he ended up as a district chief for a couple months. And he hated it so bad, he took a voluntary demotion to go back to being a captain. So he,
Wow.
yeah, he had ended up going to training for a while, and then he got back on Engine 3 and was going to be going out for some medical stuff. And, so it kind of sucked. He didn't get to end his career on his terms, but going out medical, and I got to take his spot and become the captain in that same company I was a fireman in that I came up in, and take it over for him and kind of keep his legacy going, the traditions he built. So it was kind of pretty powerful, and then when he got that spot, it's something we've done in that company for a long time, is not on all the shifts, on that shift, the B shift was, once you've been there for a certain amount of time, if you've really earned it with the guys, they buy you a badge. So you don't just have the badge the department gave you that says MFRD on it. You got one with a 3 in the middle, and you don't own it. You know what I mean? Like, they own it. They gave it to you. If you stop upholding that standard, they can take it back. And he had always told us, like, that was his most prized possession, his captain's badge with a 3 on it. And when I took over for him, he gave me that badge, and he's like, man, just keep it going. So it's kind of always an easy motivator too, to look down and see that badge is a reason to, not let it drop,
Yeah. Kind of grounds you, brings you back.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's amazing.
That's great.
And an old firehouse, that firehouse is 100 years old this year. A lot of guys have come through there, legendary names within our job. It's easy to look at pictures on the wall and see a guy's face and be like, yeah, we can't let it fall. Like, we can't be the generation that this falls off. We got to keep going with what they built,
Mm-hmm. Wow.
That's incredible, man. What a great history. And like the fact that you keep paying homage to that and keep pushing it forward.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
And
Now,
some of the guys that came through that firehouse, just legendary names that retired years ago, decades ago. I work with their sons still. Like, their sons have 30 plus years on the job. And that's the funny thing with our firehouse. I say I lose every argument because there's 3 captains on Engine 3, and 2 of them are brothers. The captain on the A shift's brother, captain on the C shift's his brother, and I'm in the middle. But we've all worked together my whole career, so all of us get along real good. So I say that as a joke, but there's never really that issue of having the argument to lose. But I mean, you hear about their dad; he's a legend in our department. Their uncle's a legend in our department, both in that firehouse, and they're still there. So their names are still alive in the things they did through the stories, but also, his 2 sons are still in that firehouse, running in the company he was in, and keeping that stuff alive.
How long have you been there now?
June will be 17 years that I've been down here now. Yeah.
How much of that is that 3?
Probably 14 of them. Yeah.
There's something to be said about that that
it's
home
home.
station,
Yeah, if I can retire out of that firehouse, that's the plan. And the way that our pension is set up, because you got to be 55 years old to draw your money. And I came on at 19. I'm going to be there for quite a minute.
Be there a while, yeah.
And then we got a 3-year drop program. So if I can do about 35, a 40-year career in that firehouse, I'll be happy with it.
That home station means a lot.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's home to us. We go there. That place is home. All the crews they're like family. Each crew is super tight and they all get along. So, you just don't go in there and have bullshit and drama to deal with too much. You go in there and go to work and you see your buddies, and it's like a big frat house and you have fun.
Yeah.
Gotta love that. Gotta love it.
It's awesome.
Is there anything that comes to mind early in your career that was impactful, that kind of like kept you there and like really wanted to push you forward in that district?
Yeah. So I'll give you like 2 things. One was my first day, and one was about 2 years in. So like I said, some of the guys from 14, one of them, he's still one of my biggest mentors. I talk to him almost every day. And I tell this story a lot because people ask, like, how do you deal with when new guys come in? How do you talk to them and all that? And I say to recruits that ride with us, or rookie gets assigned to us out of the academy, someone transfers in, the same thing this dude told me on my first shift out of the academy. And he was like, I'm thinking like fire. Like, I went to a busy fire duty company out of the academy, and we're going to talk fires immediately. And he was like, hey man, check my blood pressure. Huh? Man, I got my EMT. I know how to do it. Check my blood sugar. And we're doing all this. And I'm like, man, I want to talk fires. And I was like, so I asked him, I was like, why are we doing this? Like, I know how to do this. And he was like, because now when you get seen outside of this firehouse, you represent us. If you screw it up, it's not your fault. We didn't train you. We didn't prepare you, and you represent us as a group. And I'll never forget what he told me was, the academy's only got so much time. And for us, like, we have to do all the state certs. So from the smallest town in Alabama to the biggest cities, all the same program, right? It's not just even though we train our own, we don't go to the State Fire Academy. We train our own within our own academy at our training academy. It's still that state test, all that kind of stuff. It's not just Mobile Fire and the way we do things. So he was like, man, they've got to go through so much stuff. They only get you so many reps. They only got so much time with you. They can only teach you the basics. We do the rest. Their job is just to pluck the rock out of the dirt. It's our job to make it a diamond. And that never left me, that, okay. And that's who he was. Like, he didn't just say that. You know what I mean? I can call him right now today, and he's going to give me the answer if I have a problem. And right now, technically, I'm senior to him because I got promoted because he stayed a driver for a while. He didn't want to make captain. So technically, I'm senior, and I'll go to him, and he's still that senior man. And then I ended up transferring and leaving. I went down to Central, and I'd been there a little while. I probably had about 2 years on the job at the time. And the captain I went down there for, he was on a time swap on vacation. He was moving. He was building his retirement home, just not planning to retire so soon to it, up in the mountains in Tennessee. And they were up there. I can't remember if they were building it yet or looking at land, and they had gone on vacation. And we always made a joke, like, if he go, because he was like, do his fire dance, and we're all about fires. Like, and so we'd always make a joke, like, while you're on vacation, we're going to make a fire, and we'll call you and interrupt your vacation and let you know. And so we make a fire that's kind of right on the border. It's in Engine 8, which is, one of our second due companies. It's their first due by like a couple blocks. And we pull in behind them. And it was one of those things, like, as I go back through it now, you can watch the dominoes stack up. Things weren't going right. It was going to take one thing to kind of tip it over. At a 2-year guy that's 21 years old, okay. You hear it all on the radio. You're seeing it's not going good. And you're like, yeah, we'll get it. We always do. And so we were in there, and it was a single family home converted to a duplex. And when I say the smoke was pushed down to the street on arrival, like, you couldn't see Engine 8 in the street pumping, And so they ended up going through the front door, not knowing this house is divided into a duplex, and it's actually on the other side. And so we get all the way to the back to back them up, and they're putting water on fire. And so we think we're doing good. And their captain was like, get the second line up here. We're not making a ton of progress. Let's get 2 lines on it. We got up there, and I have the radio traffic. It's actually on YouTube since 2010. And it was like, he tells the chief, hey, we got water on the fire. We're making progress. And the chief was like, no, you're not. It's getting worse over here. And everyone started figuring out what was going on, that this house is divided up. It had burned through the wall of a bedroom, and we were just getting what was coming through the wall. And it was up in the attic above us. And essentially what happened, they read the smoke. They called for everyone to evacuate, and it just didn't have enough time. And it technically would be a cockloft explosion, even though it was in an attic, and it just blew everything down on us. And we had a few guys go into the burn unit, multiple people trapped in there, and went pretty south, and it was one of them moments where it was like, I was 21 thinking like, yeah, we're invincible. We're always okay. We'll be all right. And then you realize you're not. And it all worked out. Like I said, some burns were the worst injuries, but when they called that captain, the senior man in the firehouse who was in the truck now, is driving the truck. He used to be his driver for a long time. Called him, told him everything that happened. And from vacation, that man called me at the station the next day and was like, hey, I'm sorry. I know I was on a swap. It wasn't me there. And I'm like, man, you weren't there. It's not your fault. And I'm sorry because I wasn't there. And I mean, he became so invested in making sure that from the most junior guy coming out of the academy, you understood how to read conditions around you in case he wasn't there, which just prepared me so much for things I came into throughout my career, that he invested so much time. And I mean, he wasn't at that fire thing. That would have happened, whatever. It wasn't not at all his fault, but it was his personal ownership of his guy was one of the guys that got trapped. His guy was one of the guys that got hurt. I'm taking ownership of it. And I mean, he called me and apologized, and there was no reason for that other than he owned everything that happened in that crew, whether he was there or not. If you did something wrong, he took it as that's a failure on him because he didn't have you ready, things like that. And like I said, it wasn't something someone did wrong. Dominoes stacked up that day, and it just worked out the way it did. And luckily no one really got hurt, but seeing the ownership he took of it and the way he dealt with it after that prepared me for everything down the road in my career. So that had a huge impact on me, especially once I promoted and became an officer, of how I need to treat preparing guys, not just prepare you you're gonna promote, you're gonna make driver, and you're gonna have to act captain, or I got you as my driver, you're gonna take the test and try to make captain. Okay, I need to prepare you for that role. Like, no, from the most junior guy, I got to prepare you in case. What if you're detailed and you get separated and you're by yourself? How are you going to figure things out? And it just had a long lasting impression on me, the way he owned that, even though he didn't need to, and then he responded to it and preparing us for things happening in the future.
That's a true leader right there.
Yeah, he was a good dude
taking
to work for,
taking
man.
ownership. Yeah,
he was awesome to work for.
Yeah, it's a
And
true
how many
leader.
years was that on the job you were? How many?
I had 2 years on when that happened.
So well before you stepped out on a national scene, started teaching.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So like, think about the trickle down effect that has. That guy takes an extreme
So
ownership
to tell
in
you
you.
how, like, when I say everything came of because of his leaving so early in my career, just like I said, medical, not on his terms. There's other guys that have had just as much, if not more, impact, especially as an officer, because I've worked with him so much. But the things I do, especially like the teaching and the writing and all of that was him. I mean, the first article I wrote was because he told me, you're going to do this. And I was like, no, I don't want to. And he was like, no, you're going to do it. Because when he was in the training division, we did a big self-evaluation of engine company operations in the department. And he wanted to identify every weakness he could find and fix it. So we had like it was a 2-story, city block long boarding house. They had like 30 something rooms in it, and they were going to tear it down. So he got it approved for a live burn. And I was part of the crew he used. And we brought companies in, and we would light one room on fire, and he'd have them staged a block away at a hydrant and respond in, and the whole thing. And he ended up putting a whole class together. I got to help him teach on engine company operations and just trying to address things where we identified our strength is here, but this is the one that gets us. Not that we're bad at it. It's just not as good. And then he was like, hey man, write some articles on this because you have a degree, you know how to write. And he was like, I just can't put it to words. If we are having this problem with the amount of fire duty we were getting at the time, he was like, other people do too. We need to share what we found by looking within. So the first articles I ever wrote were literally a direct order from him to do it. And that built into everything now. So yeah, when I say it, it impacts your career. It didn't just impact my career. Like, he impacted my life.
Yeah. That's like goosebumps on the back of my neck right now.
Mhm.
Thinking about how far and wide that went.
Yep.
Another thing, you'll never know. You'll never know how impactful that was elsewhere. Just
when I tell people all
one
the
dude
time,
changing people's
when
lives.
I do a class, I usually start off with one of the first slides is a picture of a guy from our company, and he retired in like 2000-ish. I can't remember the exact year, but he's the legend of our company. Back when I came on, they had the like cartoon recruiting poster, and it's a fireman carrying a kid out and all. Well, that's a real picture of him. They just made a cartoon. And he got the Class 1 Medal of Valor, which was the highest Valor award you could get in our department at the time for rescues he made at a fire. And I always tell people, like, you'll never know the impact you have or influence, because our thing is like, retirees come by and get ice, right? Come by and get some free ice to go fishing out of the ice machine. And it's a way to come back to the firehouse, And he didn't come around a lot. There was just low morale in the department at the time, like 7 years without a pay raise. Like, people just didn't come around. And he would come a couple times a year. And we have our firehouse, a whole city block long. Half's the firehouse, half is all the executive staff, all the big chiefs, all the secretaries, all that, fire prevention, EMS, they're all there. So we would have the biggest chiefs in the department walking through, and you're sitting on, you're the floor man sitting there in the little office watching people come through. And he came in one day, and that captain, he told me, he said, man, if there's anybody that walks in these doors that you stand up and greet, it's him. I was like, okay. And I just got there, and I was like, we have the chief of the department here. So I got some questions like, who is he? And he tells me, and I'm like, okay, that's Captain Claude Curry. I've heard the name. And, you just heard all the stories. Well, you fast forward to me making captain, I leave a year, 8 months to a year goes by. I come back as a captain. And the guy that's my driver now, I've had him since he was a rookie. We're there a couple years, and he was my problem child for a while. And we laugh because he tells recruits now, like when they ride with us, he's like, hey, don't do what I did. Don't spend your first year screwing up and having to overcome it. Just don't do the stupid stuff, And he was always good at fires. It was little things around the firehouse, And so we're there a couple I don't know, a couple weeks, and they do the funeral announcement. We get a funeral announcement. Captain Claude Curry, Engine 3, B shift, has passed away. The whole thing. They announce where the funeral is, what day, and we're on duty. So I called the chief, and I was like, hey, we want a funeral time. We want to ride out there. And the young guys, they're asking, they're like, man, we've never even heard of the guy. Why are we going? I was like, well, I knew him. I've met him before, but he's from this company. We're going to go. That's the right thing to do. So we go out there, we see his family, and they see Engine 3. That was a whole part of it. But next to his casket, they had that picture of him carrying the kid out, and they had the actual write-up, like not the newspaper stuff, the write-up the chief wrote to get him the award. And I saw this rookie now, man, he's got 10 years on now, but he's reading it. And this is a guy that he asked why we're going to the funeral. And the next day I come back to work, and he's got a newspaper article taped to his locker about that captain getting that award. And it was like, man, you didn't even want to go to the funeral. What's that about? And he was like, if that's the standard, that's my reminder. I can never let him down. If they built this, I can't let them down. And so that's generations after retirement. He never worked with them, never met them, and that's still the influence he has. That's still on his locker today. That guy's picture's hanging on our wall. The first picture you see when you come up the stairs is you see him with that, in that picture. That sets the standard as a reminder. They built this. Who are we to ever let it fall apart or tear it down? But that's the influence. Like, that was a young 20-year-old kid wondering why we're even going to go to the funeral. Next thing you know, for the past 10 years of his career, that picture's been on his locker as a daily reminder of the guys that came before him and to honor them.
It's hard to fucking put into words.
Yeah,
how impactful that is.
And that's kind of like, I tell people, that's the benefit of working for older departments sometimes. Sometimes it's difficult because if you see a way to improve, it's hard to turn a big ship, especially if you got a lot of people and a lot of traditions. It's really hard to change. But with those traditions and those stories comes a lot of, I hate to use the word culture, but that firehouse culture, that what your fire department is built on, and those traditions being passed down, and something to look at and have a reminder of, man, these guys really built something that we need to continue. We have no right to ever let it fall apart on our watch.
And him putting that on his locker says a lot about him.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, he's gold now. I tell you, he was my problem child for a year. And it got to the point, it was at that point of like make or break. You going to stay here or you going to go, And it's weird. He went on a vacation one time. We talk about it all the time. He went on a 3-day vacation and he came back 180 degrees. Now it's like, we pulled some strings to keep him when he got promoted. Usually they send you out. We pulled some strings to let him stay in our firehouse because he made driver when my driver got promoted to captain and got him to stay. Like, you don't trade him in. He's one of those guys you want, he's a good right-hand man. And it all, what impact of that was just reading that guy's medal award, and seeing what someone did.
A vote of confidence for that guy too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like, you're going to war for him. Now he's going to go for war for everybody else coming through, as long as you do the right thing by the company.
Yep. And he does. If you get assigned to my firehouse out of academy, I'm going to have like a 15-minute talk with you in the office, and we're going to talk expectations and how we do things and all that. And when I open that door, he's waiting. Like, it's his turn, because we're a pretty young job now. And so that driver's really the senior man, and he's waiting at that door. And the first thing he does is bring you to that picture. He's like, and he tells you this is who Claude Curry is. Don't dishonor that. That's where he starts. So, like I said, impact, you can have a massive amount of influence and impact far beyond what you can even imagine if you just do the right thing. You just care about the job and do the right thing. You'll never even know how many people you're going to impact on here or change their career. For some people, change their life, because he's out there, he teaches with me. You've probably met him in Pensacola before. That's who he's become. The fire department is life, It's not just a job for him. He's all about it. And then he's had that influence on other guys in the crew, and they're all very, very into the job. So you watch that trickle-down effect of just guys doing the right thing motivates other people.
Yeah. That's incredible, man. Means something.
Touching on the expectations you give to new guys that get assigned to your house, man, that right there, that has so much play in everything, because at least where I work, a larger metropolitan city, you don't get a lot of like expectations in the academy. It's just like, hey, this is what we're doing. We're getting you out. We're getting you in company. And then when I got to my first assignment, I went like a week before I started there. I went and met the crew and met my officer and everything. And my officer sat me down and he was like, hey, this is what I expect. This is what I want. And then same thing, the driver who had like 25 years on the job got me right after it. He was like, hey, this is how we operate. This is what we want. And to this day, I follow those expectations. He's not my officer anymore. He left and went to a different house, but I follow those expectations to a T, and that'll go a long way. So kudos to you for that.
If you give somebody, hey man, this is what I expect from you, I can handle it now if you don't meet it. But if I don't tell you what it is, it's hard to discipline it or try to fix it. And I'm a big believer in, I'm not going to hold you accountable unless I've personally shown it to you. So if you come to me, and we do recruit ride outs, so they ride with different companies before they get assigned. And we used to do it like every weekend. So when I went through to make your 56-hour work week, you'd go 40 hours in the academy, and it rotated every week, Friday or Saturday, to get half the guys here and not really send recruits to slow stations, you know. And so you would do a 16-hour rotation. You'd either go in after you left the academy, go straight to a firehouse on Friday night, work till shift change Saturday morning, or you came in Saturday morning and stayed till 11 o'clock at night. And which was good. I hate that it went away, because one, it allowed for guys to get assigned where they would fit in. You know, they worked with a lot of crews. Captains saw them, not just in the training environment in the firehouse, but they saw how different crews worked. So it was like, if they did get a bad assignment, you know, you're not like, oh, screw this place, I'm out. You just know you got to change firehouses, change crews. There's like 60 options here. Let's pick one that fits instead of leaving the fire service. But you got to see things, and man, even on those rotations, once they send out the email like, oh, they're in EMT school now, they passed everything in fire school, they can do this, or we'll get one like, hey, they're this far in fire school, they can help your driver tonight, they can catch hydrants, blah, 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 blah. You're like, okay, hey man, you're going to be catching a hydrant tonight, so free up my guy. Okay, no problem. You know how to catch a hydrant? Yeah, cool. Hey man, I'm not playing, but we're going to go catch hydrants. I want to see that you can turn them on, because we have 3 different hydrants in the city, and you only have 2 of them at the academy. So we have regular hydrants. We have 2 different tamper devices. You're going to go turn all of them on, so I know personally you know how to do it. Because I can't get mad at 2 o'clock in the morning if you screwed it up, because you told me you know how, and I didn't take the time to show you myself. Now, if I showed it to you, you can't turn a hydrant on, now we're going to have a serious problem. You know,
Yeah,
but
it's a
I had to
different
do
story.
that to give it to you. If I didn't personally show it to you, I can't hold you accountable to it. And I'm a very big believer in that. Like, I shouldn't just believe the academy got you ready, and that's not a knock on them. They just don't have time. Well, I mean, we push academy classes of 30 to 50 people through. They only got so much time to get everyone a rep. You know, they're not all getting a ton of nozzle time. They're not all throwing ladders every time or forcing them. They're getting a sight of it. That's it. And now you got to get them there. And I go back to that. That all comes back to that first driver I had that pulled me aside and said, man, you represent us now. And that's my first thing to him. Hey, man, if you go out there and you screw up, no one's going to call you a shitbag. They're going to call us shitbags. You don't represent yourself right now. You represent this company, and you make us look bad. And someone that's into the job, or they come on and they want to do good, they just have that about their personality. They don't want to make you look bad any more than they want to look bad themselves. So now they have some motivation to do it. And our big thing is like, I'll show it to you, and then I'm going to leave it alone. Let the men in the company handle it. And they'll work with you on it, and then the driver will come tell me, hey, man, he's ready. Let's do a drill. So now you had your mistakes with your peers, not your boss. And you got ready, so now when your boss watched, you get that pat on the back and we move on. And that's been pretty successful for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. What got you, when did you start teaching doing the Port City?
I think around 2017, 2018. I was in that 10 years area on the job, and was the first time I did some stuff locally, just kind of that same program we did within. Some guys wanted it locally, like guys in my firehouse wanted it for their volunteer departments. And then I did Firehouse Expo one year. It was in Nashville, and it just kind of grew from there. But a lot of it, man, I'm blessed locally. We got a bunch of huge conferences an hour away from the city, an hour and 45 from my house, but in Pensacola. And I get it all the time. People ask us like, man, how did you get involved with Chief Ike and all that, and teaching at these conferences. And it always seems to be the same story for the younger generation of us coming up, not the guys that started it. And it's like, man, someone couldn't make it, and they trusted me with his stuff. So like I would go there as a student, and I knew like Kevin Story from Houston and John Naniga and all them that were teaching all the PRVs at H-Rock. And Kevin was supposed to teach his PRV prop for Water on the Fire one year and had something come up and couldn't make it. And he was like, I only trust this many people with my prop. So I went and helped that year. And then after that, it built from there. And that's kind of how it all started. And it just kind of compounded and grew off of that. So it one of them things, not something I ever set out to do or even thought about. It just kind of became a part of being a guy going to conferences, trying to learn, and then getting in that circle and ending up with some opportunities.
So let's talk about that a little bit. You've already touched on how good a circle you have in Mobile, but yeah, I would say your circle outside of Mobile is pretty damn good too.
Yeah, my circle outside of Mobile is, and I tell you this, it's very good for more than most people would think. It's not just the names that I get to be very good friends with as mentors and teaching, or that I can call and ask a question. If I've got a high-rise question, I mean, the group text in my phones of high-rise guys, of Brent Brooks from Toronto, Jimmy Davis from Chicago, Ray McCormack, Clark Lamping, like Steve Robertson, all these guys, Todd Edwards, like basically part of my family. We're so close. We do so much stuff together and all them, but it's not just this group of guys I have that, a lot of people you would just look up to, like, man, to sit in a room and just listen to them, I would learn so much. And I have them at my fingertips all the time. It's not even just the fire stuff they teach you. That group takes so much pride in their friends being successful, the amount of just accountability they hold you to at work. Like if we're sitting there talking and you hear a story and they'll be like, man, why the hell did you do that? And they're right there, they're chewing your ass right there. Like, no, we don't do that. And it's like, man, nope. And they'll chew your ass out right there and just get on you and hold you accountable. Even if no one made a big deal about it in your department, like, nope, we're not doing that. And so it's awesome because I can reach out for the information side of things. And it's also a whole nother circle that I'm accountable to, because they don't want someone they're associating with doing, dumb shit that gets put on the internet either. So they're going to hold you accountable and make sure, we do things. An example of that same guy I'm talking about with that picture on his locker, acting captain, he made a mistake one year, last year, he made a mistake. Okay. We can fix that. We get to FDIC and they're like, hey buddy, sit down. Cause he came as a volunteer for our hands-on class. Go ahead and sit down. We're going to have a little meeting. And they got him right there. And it was like, but he looked at it and he was like, it's not just coming from you. It's not just coming from our chief. Okay. I got it. You move on. People make mistakes, not a big deal. And he's not going to make it again, but he has access to that same circle, and they're going to hold him as accountable as they hold me, as they hold everyone else in that circle. So it really is more than just the teaching side or the education side or being able to ask them a fire question. I mean, it is pretty awesome when you're like walking a tenement building and you're like, man, I got a question on this. And you just call Ray McCormack, who worked in Harlem forever. And you're like, hey man, I got a question about this, or you got a high-rise question. You're calling, Jimmy Davis or Brent Brooks, it makes it from an educational side and learning very easy. But that accountability part to me is what makes that group I get to be a part of, so special, because they hold each other so accountable to things. There's no just like, oh, they're out teaching and they just like, oh yeah, you're doing that. No, they're holding you even more accountable now.
Yeah, they're all good men, like really top shelf men.
And the thing about them to me, and I tell people, like, it's what I look for when I'm looking at, if we're going to be friends or I meet you at a conference, like, hey, we're going to like actually have a friendship here. I like genuine people, not someone that's putting on a show, not someone that's trying to be somebody they're not for this. They're telling you exactly who they are. And tomorrow they're going to be the same person. And if it's me and you, they're the same person they are as if Ray McCormack walks in a room, or Steve Robertson or anybody like that. They're not trying to show out for anybody. That's what I like, a genuine person, because we can talk genuinely about our experiences and our careers and all that and learn from each other. So that's what I look for. And that's what they all are. They're just genuine, good people.
Yeah.
And
they can sing karaoke too.
Yeah. Yeah. So that I know exactly which bar you're talking about, Pensacola.
There's one individual in particular who's a great singer at karaoke. Puts on a show. But you got to go to Pensacola to find out.
Yep.
And a good group of friends, they holding you accountable is huge. Just makes it holding you accountable is key to your group of friends.
And if they're all, I mean, if they all don't have ego in it, everybody's holding each other accountable is just making each other better. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like, if you're going to sit there and just tell someone all the time how great they are, you're not helping them. I want you to, if I screw up, like, I want you to tell me. Don't be an ass about it, you know, because then we're going to fight. We're going to end up yelling at each other and no one's going to get anywhere. But if we could sit down like two men and have a conversation where I can learn from something I did wrong, then that's something that needs to happen. And that's what I always loved. The chief I worked for most of my career and almost the entire time as a captain until he retired, he was the senior man of the job when he retired. He had 42 years, something like that. Old school, you know. So, and I always wanted to work for old school guys. Like, that's all I'd been around. So that was fun to work for him. And he was awesome to be around. We could joke, we could talk, but he let his standard be known. From day one, it was like, hey, I better not see anything but drivers in the front yard. You belong in that house. We put fires out from the inside. And that was his standard. And when I worked for him as a captain, he had two rules. Take care of your people, put the fire out from the inside. You know, now, obviously, I mean, if it's fully involved and falling down, that wasn't him. I mean, he did get on me and yell at me for going in some fires that he was like, you didn't need to go in there. But that was his rule. Like, if there is any space to get in there and search for somebody, we have to get in there. You got to buy time for that truck company. Okay. And then his thing with you, number one rule was you take care of your people. So he was a guy, he didn't care. If you were right, he was willing to put the bullseye on his back to defend you. And that translates, you know. So if you work for him for a long time, I'm willing to put the bullseye on my back if my guy's in the right, you know. And that was the example he set. And you weren't going to work for him if you didn't, you know. And a lot of guys didn't like him because his standard was his standard. And if you didn't meet it, for him, it wasn't an uncomfortable conversation at all for him to get on you. So people didn't like it because he held them accountable. We loved it. All of us would have went anywhere he told us to. If he said, go do that, no questions asked, we'll do it. You know, and he's retired now a couple of years. We'll still, you know, like once a year, just pay for a big steak dinner and have him back at the firehouse. That's the impact he had on guys, you know? So yeah, it all goes back to that influence and impact if you're doing it the right thing.
No doubt. So we touched on Mobile. We touched on a little bit of teaching on the outside. Tell me a little bit about what was the Alabama Training Foundation. Is it now the National?
Yeah. So, well, legally, yes and no. And within the state of Alabama, it is. Everything's been sent to the IRS, and I've talked to them, and they've said it's processed. That just only updates once a month. So in March, it should officially be done. It should have been done before the first of the year, like our plan was, but the post office lost the paperwork. Go figure. But and that was just a local thing, man. It just started. All this stuff started from local guys going to conferences and going. Like I said, an hour drive from the city's Pensacola, and we have like a group of 5 people that would go out of 500 and something members. So we would come back and be like, man, why won't you go? Like, oh, the department won't pay for it. I got to get a hotel. I got to get the time off. The department won't give it off. And we're like, all right, let's find a way to make it local. It'll be kind of expensive, but let's get it right in our backyard. So we did it at one of the guys' volunteer departments. Sold out every year. And we're like, all right, this is growing. So we did it for a few years and we were like, okay, the need is there. Like, let's do something. And we had some people that wanted to support it locally, like, you know, put money towards it. And they were like, you know, we just need it to be a nonprofit. So we got some people involved and they were like, yeah, we want to do it. So it started out with myself, Joe Pettis, who's my driver, Rico Bush, he's our nozzle man, Todd Edwards from Atlanta, his wife, my wife, and Mickey Farrell from FDNY that I'm always with. And we grew up in neighboring towns in New Jersey. And everyone's like, man, why did you start an Alabama Training Foundation with guys from Atlanta and New York City? And we're like, well, local guys aren't teaching here. Like, we're bringing guys from all over the country. So we need more resources in vetting who you're going to bring in. Because if we do a hands-on, like, okay, yeah, that's in Baldwin County, one county over. But when we do these lectures that we give away for free at night, we do them at my fire academy for my fire department. I'm not bringing someone to my fire department if I can't vet they're legit. And not just their information. Like, I don't want you to regurgitate a book to me and the information's right. I want you to give the tidbits that aren't in that book because it's your experience. That's what I want you to give my fire department. That's what you're going to teach them. So we needed people that could help with the vetting process. And they were both very involved in teaching down here since we started doing it. And then, so we did that for a year and a half, 2 years. And the goal was to kind of eventually spread it out and make it a Southeast thing. And like, we want Alabama to be the hub of training of the country. The Southeast is where you come. And we started talking, man. We had people flying in from Colorado, Illinois to come to classes. And we were like, okay. And we started getting phone calls like, how do we do this here? How do we get this here? And then it started had the conversation of like, do we want every state to make one of these or just make one big one? And so we made the decision, just make it national. Like, it's been successful. Let's do it. It's going to be about Alabama. Alabama's never going to change our goals here. Our goal is 16 things a year in the state of Alabama every year, 12 down here in the southern part. So something every month and something every quarter somewhere else, because the northern part of the state has like the Wiregrass training facilities over in Dothan, over on the east side of the state. Tuscaloosa's got the State Fire Academy. And it started down here. It was about down here. So we want to do 16 things a year here, 2 hands-ons, the whole thing. And then just spread it out. And we were like, you know what? We got to take care of Alabama. And if we can raise enough money that we can do something somewhere else, that's what we're going to do. And we just want it to be about firemen that love the job, that want to train, and making it accessible to them. So we try to do it through 2 programs. If we do a conference, there's a fee to go. And we keep it as cheap as we possibly can, and we fundraise for it. Like the big class we do in Fairhope, Alabama every year, like it might look good that it's only $299 for the amount of people, instructors we fly in, and we only let 60 students come. So it's like a 2-to-1 ratio instructor to student for this stuff. It's like, yeah, but it doesn't come near covering the cost of it. We have to work to fundraise the rest of it to keep it that low. So we want to do that with, like, if we do a lecture seminar somewhere and send people somewhere, like, okay, man, it's like $20, $25 a day. That's the goal. Like anyone can afford that. That's McDonald's tomorrow, you know?
Yep.
And you're going to get some legit guys. And, but then we have that drill night program we did, which was like, cause around here, like I grew up in New Jersey. I started out in New Jersey. So you guys know the standards there, right? To be a volunteer in New Jersey, you have to go through a lot of training, which is probably killing y'all's recruitment for volunteer fire departments because people don't have the time. Well, down here, it's like, hey, I want to be a member. Cool, bro. Show up. And that training level is voluntary. They don't have to do it. So we were like, man, that's just not good. And they don't have numbers. So it was like, you got this fire department, this department, this department. You're all going to run mutual aid together. And on Monday nights, you're going to drill with your 3 people that showed up. You got 6 and you got 4. Well, why don't we just bring you all together and bring you a legitimate instructor to teach you something from experience? So we made the drill night really, I mean, it's not just for volunteers. It's mainly attended by career guys, but to make it really, truly accessible to volunteers, you're already having a drill night. Let's do it at the same time. If we put on a 2-day live fire class like we're doing next month, for a volunteer, that's very hard because they worked Monday to Friday. And they just gave up their only time with their family. You know, it's easy for us to look at our schedules and go, man, that's 2 days. Like, not a big deal. Get a time swap, I'm gold. You know, I'm off for the week. Like, no, that's not the case for them. So we wanted to do something for them. So we've been doing that every month. We brought in Ray McCormack, Steve Robertson, Mickey Farrell, Mike Champo, Daryl Liggins, guys from all over the country, and we give it away for free. If whatever it costs you to get here, if you get here, that class is free. And it's all classes you're going to find at FDIC, all the biggest conferences, and legitimate vetted guys with a lot of experience in what they're talking about. And we started getting just so much outreach of how do we get this here? And the first thing we did out of the state was in Mississippi in January. And those guys just made the impression of like, if we're going to start anywhere and spreading out, it's going to be Hattiesburg, Mississippi, because they were having like 3, 4, 5 guys drive over every single month, make the 1.5-hour drive to Mobile to come to these classes and get a free class. And then all it was, man, anything you guys need, if you ever come out of the state, we don't get things like this here. We'd love to do it. And it was just constant of like, how do we make this region better? So myself, Mickey, and Todd sat down and we were like, hey, let's just go over there. Whatever the travel cost is, let's go put our time in it and let's get this thing spread out of the state. Because if there's anywhere we want to start it, it's going to be there. So we did it there, and then it just kind of spread, and it's taken, as it spreads, it's going in different directions, you know? So like we're going out to Albuquerque, New Mexico. When you have a fire department whose chief of training wants to fly to be not like observe, but come to a hands-on live fire class for 2 days. And it's like, no, I don't want to observe. I want to be in it. You're like, yeah, bro, I'll do something for that fire department, and we've already been like, me and Mickey were out in Colorado, not through the foundation, just doing a class last year. And a dude drove all the way from Albuquerque up there to attend the class. So we were like, that's a good place to go. And then you talk to them and they're like, yeah, we send a bunch of guys to FDTN every year. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good place to go. They're investing in their people to host it. And it's open to anybody, but to host it there. And then it a couple months ago, a discussion happened and it took another turn, and me and Mickey were sitting at what was it, like Buffalo Wild Wings on the way home from Mississippi from that class to get him to the airport. And we were like, man, what can we do? Because we made it like, we always want there to, Alabama's the hub, but Georgia and New Jersey need to have stuff every year. Because Todd's from Georgia. Me and Mickey grew up and started in Sussex County. Like, those states grew this, from the start is what created this. And it was just becoming a conversation. It was like, what do we want to do in New Jersey? We've done things in Sussex County before. We started talking about maybe Bergen County. We've both got, family ties in that region of the state. Different things in the southern end. We talked about Bridgeton because Anthony Brago down there, things like that. And it came up like, hey, there's a family in Sussex County, in Sparta, which is where Mickey grew up. I grew up right next to it. And he was like, man, they're both volunteer EMTs within their community, and their 12-year-old daughter's battling cancer. Let's do something that's just a charity benefit. Every dollar goes to that family. We called Mike Champo, like, hey, man, you in? He was like, absolutely. Everybody just donating their time, and every dollar going to go to them. So now it's even taken a different route of being able to once in a while support a charity or give money to a good cause through things like that too. Because, okay, we were able to fundraise the money to cover the flight and the hotel and all that. And, guys don't mind donating their time to something like that when you have the right circle again. So it's growing very fast. The interest in it is outgrowing the fundraising. We'll put it that way. We're hoping that's not going to be a problem based on some meetings we've had with some people. And if those turn out the way we think they might, we think we've created something that can truly do something for the fire service from a training perspective. And what I like about it is, like, we added another board member, a guy that used to drive for me, works in North Alabama now. And it's all guys that they don't care if their name's on anything. It doesn't matter. It's not about them. They just love the fire department. And they want what was given to them because they all came in big old departments, and the senior guys gave them something. And they want to make sure guys are being given that same gift. And so if we can do something and bring people in, and we want it to get to where you can reach out to us. Like, Rich could reach out and be like, hey man, we want to get one of those drill nights, here, and what's it take? And that might be we look through everyone from New Jersey that sent us, an application, whatever you want to call it, for the class to be there. Like, hey man, yeah, we're going to do a free drill night for you. We're going to send you this instructor. You just handle the logistics for us, handle the room, because we're not going to be there, and we're just going to pay this guy to come teach for you and give you that class. And that's the goal with it, is to make that FDIC level, the Pensacola level, whatever conference it is you go to, available to everybody locally. And the goal is not just affordable, but for a lot of guys free. Because I get it, man. Like, this is the area of the country isn't paid very high. Our cost of living is very different, but still, like, guys are struggling, and especially a young guy. That young guy might be hungry, and he's just in a bad firehouse. He just doesn't have a crew willing to invest in him, but he's willing to go to anything he can. He just can't afford it. Well, now, if we can get that one class there, what's that do for his career? And like I said, I'm just happy we built it with who we did, because no one there cares about their name being on it. It's not about them. They just want to do something because they love the fire department. And so it's growing. I think it's going to become something very special to us that people are really going to get something out of and enjoy having as a resource every year. And just hopefully it keeps going the trajectory it is, and we'll be down that road. To the point we've had, like, federal senators reach out to us about trying to figure out ways they can help us. So I'm hoping by this year we have some funding to do some special stuff with it, but really next year we can take things to a whole nother level. And our goal is really to be able to do something in every state every year, even if it's one of those drill nights that, of the 48 states that touch each other, we can do something every year, because it'd be hard for a drill night. It's hard to ask someone to fly to Hawaii for 3 hours and fly home. You know what I mean? So that one
Yeah.
would be tough. Alaska would be the same. So it would have to, like, we want to do places there. Like, I'm friends with Shane, and I was like, man, when we get this thing off, and he was like, man, I want Hawaii to be there. We want to do a conference, anything you need. And so it's like, yeah, we want to do stuff like that. And we want to grow it to where we can help Canada because they border us. Places like Puerto Rico because they're a territory of the United States. And just make something truly special that grows and involves a lot of people that are within the group that just don't care about them. You know what I mean? They don't care about their name on it. They care about doing for the fire service what somebody in their career did for them. Everybody in that group has some old guy that did something for them to make them go down that road. They taught them, they invested in them, and they want to make sure everyone gets that opportunity. And I think it's going to be special. It's just got to play the waiting game as it grows at the right pace. If it grows too fast, it's going to fall apart. So we're happy it's growing slow, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I'm going to have to get you guys to come to Tennessee.
Hey, man, that's an easy one for us. You got Alabama and Georgia next to you. We got that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and Tennessee's on the list because we've had people from Tennessee come down to classes and say, how do we get it? You know, like I said, we want to get everywhere and do stuff for people. You know, that it's just going to be how it goes. And where if you know, we've talked to some guys in Miami because we have some connections to them. If they want to donate and they say, hey, we want a class in Miami, like, okay, Florida might get multiple things this year. We're going to spend your money in your community like you asked, you know, but then that community is really going to be taken care of, you know. So I think it's going to be a good thing. We want to eventually grow it too, to where, like, hey, you guys are running a conference. Maybe we can sponsor one of your hot classes for you and take that bill off of your conference so you can get it running, you know, or an established conference, just help that conference keep going. So that's down the road. Obviously we got to take care of within first and get it where we want, but it's a very big, broad goal in the long term of getting there. And hopefully it works out.
That's awesome. It seems like we have some similar ambitions to try to bring training, make training a little more accessible to everybody across the country.
Yeah.
Kind of like the like our app that we have out there. The goal is to make training accessible. I know there's a huge difference between virtual training and in-person training, but we're trying to bring some of these classes to everybody's fingertips for the price of a cup of coffee. So it's great to see other parts of the country trying to accomplish the same things.
Yeah, like I said, a lot of it's just, you know, I realize I'm blessed. I got a lot of conferences within a very, very short drive of my house. Not everybody has that. You can throw a rock and hit a mini conference everywhere in the country, but not to that level of what I have had exposure to my whole career, of guys like Ray McCormack and Steve Robertson, Bob Morris, Champo, you know, those guys a couple times a year for a 1 hour drive. You're like, so I get it. Not everyone was blessed like I was in that sense, but we do want to get everybody access to something with those same level of guys, you know.
And the connections you're able to make by just having some motivation, you know. That's what I get asked all the time by guys. Hey, do you know anybody that works in Oklahoma? And I'm like, yeah, I know a couple guys, or, you know, Miami or whatever. And it's just because I went to a class somewhere or just had a little bit of motivation or just cared, and you just start making friends and you start getting connections. That's great, man.
And the good thing too with conferences and things, like even just classes, the ones that go aren't forced to go. They're into the job. So they're the ones you want to be around. And they're the ones that are, like I said, genuine people. They will help another fireman out in a heartbeat. I got a phone call the other day, like, hey man, do you know anybody in this city? I got a family member going through chemo, all that. I want to see maybe the fire truck can go put the aerial up in front of his window and all that. Yeah, let me make a phone call. Call somebody. Yeah, I think I can get that set up. Get me his number. You know, like that quick. They want to do something for a brother, you know. So it brings you around the right people. It doesn't just bring you around other firemen. It brings you around those right people that they are those genuine, want to have friendships outside of their bubble and care about firemen and the fire service and the brotherhood and doing things for each other.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing experience too, especially like everyone gets stuck in their own department a little bit from time to time. And like the world isn't exactly like bright, vibrant colors all the time, but when you get around them guys who are into it and they're ate up, you're like, yeah, dude, this is pretty fucking good still. This is real good. Like,
and you realize, like, you go to a
It's gonna work.
conference and you're down in the dumps about your department and what's going on or the morale. Like, we've been suing the city over our pay for like 2 years. It's easy for guys to get, in a bad mood about the job. You go to a conference, one, you're around that 1%, that motivated guys. It brings you back up. And then as you get talking, you realize you're like, yeah, it's the same circus, just different clowns. We all got the same problems. So everybody's dealing with the same problems
everybody's got the
politically.
same problems.
Or this chief did this to somebody and all that. And you're like, man, we've all got the same. It's not just my job. It's not just your job. You're like, we're all going through the same thing. So it's really not that big of an issue to get upset about, because it's not like if I just threw a fit, I'm done, I'm moving, I'm going here to this fire department. Guess what? I'm going to run to the same fire. I'm the same problem.
Same shit.
Same shit. Except I don't have my buddies with me anymore that I've came up with. So it's like you start realizing maybe that problem isn't so big of a problem.
And it's like morale for your company. They say if you can just make a good fire, morale is going to get better. We're making 20 EMS runs a day. I made a good fire. All right, now we're good. Let's make 20 more EMS runs. It's kind of the same thing to me. Let me go to a good class or be around some good motivated dudes, and I'm like, all right, I'll go back to work and make these 30 EMS runs today.
Oh yeah, I learned that from he's our chief of operations now. I mean, he's second in the department, but when he was a captain, I worked in neighboring firehouses with him. I mean, you'd get detailed over there, whatever, and his nozzle man for 10 years was he's the truck captain on my shift in my firehouse, and then the guy that drove for me for a few years was a private firefighter for him for years. And they'd be like, man, because the engine's making all them medical runs while the truck's doing them truck sit-ups at night, sit up, lay back.
Yeah.
And it gets old pretty quick, and they start fighting. And he'd be like, man, we just make a fire. Fires make everything, but all of this will stop as long as we make a fire. Everyone will get along again. And it is. It's like it's the fix. Maybe we're sick people, but it's the fix. Things aren't going good in the firehouse.
Yeah.
Make a fire. You got stuff going on in your
to the public, we're sick. Yeah.
But
it
seems to be the fix.
If you don't understand, you think we're sick people, but
just need that bump.
Man. Give me a little bit. I'm gonna get a hit.
Yeah, just need that
little boost every now and then. Don't hurt.
All right, knowing who you know, on your job, off your job. If you could pick who you could sit at the kitchen table with and have dinner one night, you're a perfect lineup of people. Who are you picking to sit down and have the kitchen table dinner with?
For me, and it's going to sound funny because we did talk about that circle I have outside my job. For me, would be to be able to have a kitchen table dinner with all the legends of the company I work in, and hear the stories originally, not what's got passed down, but hear not just what we know of our company, but to go back to the war years and hear the stories of all those guys that built what I get to be a part of. That would be the ultimate for me, would be to sit down with them. I mean, most of them are gone. But to hear all those stories, not just the story and the keeping their name alive in the firehouse and all that, but to hear it firsthand, that would be pretty special, because at the same table you would have a lot of sons. And that would be to hear those dads telling the stories and seeing you're learning from them, but you're also seeing the pride in the face of their sons while it's being done. That would be a very special dinner to be at.
I can't help but agree with you on that one. I think it's a pretty perfect answer.
Yeah, that would be special for us. I mean, like I said, where I work, it's all about company pride. So we're very big in, like, you might not get along with everybody because they'll tell you, oh, no, we're better than you. No, we're better than you. But it was built on that. They were so competitive with things. And to hear the guys that built that tell those firsthand stories would be quite the occasion.
Speaking of, sons, if you had a kid, son or daughter coming on the job, what would be the one thing you told them?
To put their head down and work. That, just do the job and let your work speak for you. I'm a big believer of, man, and I'm a talker. That's fine. But, like, you can't talk yourself up a reputation. And that's everything. We have two things that we really care about: reputation and then the rank seniority. So, that one's going to go a long way. And it goes a long way for someone to just say, man, he's a good fireman. You can't talk that up. You can't buy it. You can't do it. That's work. Your tools did the talk for you. And you went in a bad place with some people and you didn't back up. And that's how we do it. Like I said, we do that badge thing. And we've carried that on. Our thing is you got to be in the company for 2 years. And you had to earn it. Like, if we didn't make any good fires with you, 2 years ain't enough. You know what I mean? Like, we had to be in a bad spot and you didn't flinch. And when you earn it, like I said, you'll get the speech like, hey, you don't own that badge. We'll take it back. And they will. Don't get me. They will take it back. They hold it very, to their heart. But, and it builds something. I mean, you just became a part of something special because it's not like, hey, we have this badge. You can go buy it. They put their money in and they gave it to you. It was a gift that you earned that respect. And that goes a long way. And it also goes a long way when there's people you don't necessarily like and they don't like you, but they don't mind you being at the fire. You know what I mean? It's all handshakes when you're on a fire together. They might hate you tomorrow, but on a fire, you bring a sense of comfort to them for that, how this is going to go, that they can rely on you. You're not going to back up. You're going to make your position. You're going to do what you're supposed to do. That's all I can ask for on this job. And that if my son, one of my kids was to go on the fire department, that would be their thing. Just, man, work. Do the work. And then also, man, don't disrespect your name. Don't disrespect the name on the top of that jacket, but don't disrespect the one on the bottom either. Like, you represent a lot of people. Because it's not, I might be the only one on the fire department, but you represent a lot of people with that name. Come in here and do the name right. But all you got to do is do the work, especially if you're in a good firehouse. The guys are going to take care of you and teach you. All they're looking for is someone motivated that's going to do the work, and they'll put all the pride in the world into you. But if you won't even ask a question, they're not going to help you. They're going to let you fail. Because if you don't want it, in today's society, they're not going to give it to you. But a lot of these old guys, they came up different. And we have 30 and 40-year guys. Like, they came up in that there is no why. There is, hey, do this. Yes, sir. And you go do it. And luckily, I worked for people that were from that generation, but they understood. You know what I mean? Like, they understood my generation of the start of the Y generation. And we understood, like, hey, stretch a 2.5. Why? That wasn't the right thing. But when we got back, hey, Captain Ray, what did you see that made you make that decision? Now you had a multiple hour-long conversation where he gave you past fires and you learned his experiences so that when you promoted, you didn't just have your experiences. I have his too, to make those decisions. And so he was very good about that. But you weren't going to get it out of him if you didn't take the initiative to ask. You were going to get his daily drills, and he was going to drill you and build a machine out of you. But you weren't going to get that extra without you putting forth the effort to show you wanted it. So that'd be my thing.
Love it. I'm going to have to go tell my 9-month-old this.
I'm waiting for my son to come home. He'll be out. My son will be out in the front yard later. My son will be out in the front yard later with his helmet on and his radio strap.
There you go. Mine ain't that into it, but he does visit the firehouse. He wants to sit in the captain's seats.
My son feels like he owns the street.
Oh, there you go.
He's out there with his helmet and his radio strap.
There you go.
Walking up and down the sidewalk.
For Halloween, we had our 2-year-old. He was dressed up as a fireman, and I just happened to have, because of teaching, lots of nozzles and hose. So we had all these pictures with like a hose laid out, and he's holding the nozzle. So I sent it to all the truck guys. I was like, "Hey, bro, he's doing good."
Yeah,
and then, of course, I sent him. My parents gave him a recliner for Christmas. So as soon as he reclined that thing back, I took a picture and I sent it to all the truck guys. I was like, "Damn, y'all got to him. He's trained. He's in time."
Oh man, that's something else. Well, I think we're gonna wrap it here, and
yep,
we're gonna save some for a part 2 because
all right.
I think if we keep going, we'll go all damn day.
Oh yeah,
yep, yeah. No, I agree. I think so.
I mean, this is great. Maybe we'll have to get you and Mick on at the same time.
Oh, there you go. We do everything together.
That would be great.
Yeah, I'll have to send him some Guinness though.
And you're bringing too many truck people around now.
Things happen.
He got promoted for a little while. He was on the engine there for a little while.
Yeah,
that's what I was told. His true promotion was riding that engine.
Get to be a fireman again.
Yeah.
So, but man, it's been super enjoyable. Really refreshing to hear a captain.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the time that you guys gave me and your platform to talk about where I work and the guys I work with, and the impact they've had on my career, and then that the group of people that have had that impact from outside as well too, because that's what it's really about. I didn't do anything special. I'm nobody special. It's just the impact a lot of people had that I got to share with people.
That's incredible. I think that's a message everyone should hear.
You guys got it. You guys got it down there from what it sounds like. So
yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Man, we really are blessed of who we work with, That's why I said it's home. I don't ever want to leave that firehouse. We work with good people.
That's right.
So Hang out with us for a second. We'll kill the recording, and then we'll BS some more.